Good evening and welcome to the October 15th meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Bankin, seconded by Perez. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Director Perez, will you please read the mission statement?
The mission of the Ames Community Schools is to ensure that all learners develop the knowledge, skills, attitudes, values, and personal esteem necessary to grow in and shape a changing society.
Thank you. I will go ahead and read our statement on the public forum and items for discussion. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And the first item under discussion items is policies for discussion, section 200. And I'll turn it over to Superintendent Reisner and Directors Bierbaum and Bankin.
And so just as a reminder, we had discussed at previous board meeting that we were going to go with the IASB policies this year, and those policies have been vetted by an attorney, and they keep current with laws as they change. And so that is what we have done this first time, is take a chunk of policies and really go through, and we did some work on matching them up to our current policies. Some of them we didn't have as current policies, and so that's the way we'll approach this as we kind of get caught up on our policies.
So as we went through, just for everybody's reference, I know in the packet there's the information on all the specific policies. We weren't planning on going through every single one of them as the committee had done that, but we had called out specific policies where there were comments the committee had. I know there's one we need to definitely talk about, but as you're looking through, are there any that anybody would like to discuss? I know we need to discuss policy 213, the public participation one. Also definitely wanted to pull out the student school board representative one. That one's one that all of us were very happy with, and the superintendent has had past experience with that and is going to be coming to us with some ideas of the best way to kind of bring that student forward, things like that. But I would move forward to the item I had mentioned, 213, unless anybody has any comments on ones leading up to that. Does anyone?
The only one before that I wanted to make a comment on, it's 210.8, the board meeting agenda. And under the document that you have up on your screen, the first bullet, and I believe this is in our policy currently, but I'm just concerned about it. It says towards the bottom of the bullet, any board member may raise such matters for discussion during the items from the board agenda item at the board meeting. My concern with that is, according to open meetings law, we have to have anything listed that we are going to speak about. It has to be on our agenda. So the items from the board at the end, those are really updates from individual board members. They are not intended to initiate discussion, because if there's a desire to have a discussion, then that's when it needs to go through the process of getting listed on our agenda. So if you look on, so that was, I guess it's the first solid bullet underneath the
Summary.
Yeah, underneath the summary, yes.
That seems like something we should change.
Yeah.
And make consistent.
can it be something that somebody wants to bring up without having a discussion?
Yeah, that's it. The intent is just to adjust it so that it does not appear that we can bring up a discussion topic. So board members may make statements during the items from the board on the agenda item,
So you think, like, change that, so any board member may raise such matter for discussion. So should we take discussion out or something? Is that what you were thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So any board member may make statements during the items from the board agenda item at the board meeting, something like that.
Okay.
And then the idea is that they would still do then a couple sentences before that, where the request of 2 board members will result in the item being placed on an agenda in the future.
Yeah, so if it comes about that there is a discussion that folks may want to have on that, then that's the route that it could go.
I have a question about 210.5, meeting notice. We've had some discussion about putting stuff up on the website and a little bit more information for committees. So I don't know if that's something we want to talk about right now.
I think the way we did the policy, and Superintendent Reisner can comment on this, I think the part where we talk about the committees, we actually specifically state that they would fall under these same rules that we use for all our other meetings, for open meetings. We can check on that though.
In our, I'd like to see, as we bring this forward, but that we specify specifically, it says 3 days. I'd like to see it say specifically 3 business days, so that there's not that mushy, ambiguous weekend time involved. Otherwise, let's specify 5 days. Because our intention is, and the practice has been in the past, that the agenda comes out on a Thursday prior to the Monday meeting. So, so if we just add in 3 business days, I think that covers that. In addition, the previous discussions that we've had in previous years regarding committees, really, Alan, I appreciate your comment that we should really use the same standard that we use for the board meetings in relation to the committees. I think that's a practice we ought to adopt and move forward with that.
And so to clarify, the 3, you would like to see the 3 days go to 3 business days?
Correct.
So that would be, if we had a Monday meeting,
If we had a Monday meeting, that would be Thursday.
Thursday?
Right.
Thursday, Friday, Monday. Okay.
Right.
My only concern with that is, does that tie our hands? And we can all think about the times when something adjusted or something that the board packet had to go out on Friday, that are we putting our staff in a situation that, because then if it's not out on Thursday, then it doesn't go out. And I'm just a little concerned thinking about just even the past 6 months when we've had things. Kim tries to get it out on Thursdays, but sometimes life happens.
Yeah, and I understand that, but we need to give the public the adequate notice they need to evaluate what we're going to be discussing, and shortening that for our convenience or for our staff's convenience isn't enough to meet the standard. I feel that we should be giving the public the proper notification so that they know about the issue, they can research it, they can ask questions, and be prepared for Monday's meeting. And waiting until Friday, that makes it so, for example, if that agenda doesn't come out till Friday afternoon, that makes it very difficult for somebody in the community to get any answers. Basically, that gives them Monday to research, ask questions, whereas if it's coming out promptly as it should Thursday morning, we should be prepared for that. And we should be planning our schedules accordingly to have that agenda prepared. If something is not, let's say, ripe enough, prepared enough by Thursday morning, then yeah, it's going to have to wait till the next meeting. And that's the way I think proper policy by this school district or any public policy should be done, in a very thoughtful way to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
I guess I'd rather have more leniency in what we can do and not pin ourselves in. So I'd rather follow what Iowa Code would suggest and then have a practice of getting it out on Thursday like we've done. So I guess it's, to me, I've not heard from the public that people are anxiously waiting on Thursdays to get information. So I guess I don't know what the pressing need would be to move it even further ahead and stress our staff out more. So I think the Thursday makes sense.
Is there a middle ground? You know, we're talking about a day. So I'm wondering, is there any sense of how frequently we have to add an agenda item, or do we need the Friday? Because I think Superintendent Reisner's preference, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it go out on Thursday.
Absolutely.
But there are some times it has to go out on Friday because something comes up. How frequent is it that something comes up?
I think it's refining our own processes and practices, and that will help eliminate the problem that we've been running into of just not having reports in and different things. I think that's more of a management issue on my part, and so I will make sure that we are doing that more timely. And I think the only time that, you know, there's been the issues that they've had to go out on a Friday, or maybe somebody's ill, or you know.
And so to get to that, in that middle ground, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is the requirement is I thought it was 24 hours notice. So and the Friday serves as 24 hours because nobody counts the weekend. And so could we post an agenda on Thursdays, and if there are these emergency additions, updated on Friday, and we haven't violated any statutes?
Maybe a good model that we could follow would be what the county board does. They will promptly always, on a regular schedule, put out their agendas. And there are changes now and then. And that's probably the model I'd like to see us locally follow. Let's always get our agendas out on Thursdays. And if something isn't quite right, if something does pop that we would like to address because of a particular statutorial thing we need to get done in a timely fashion, and we need to add it to the agenda on Friday, we can always publish on Friday an amended agenda. That's perfectly legal and within the law, the statutes, procedures, and that's what the county board does on a regular basis.
And going back to Gina's point about the website, is this something that, did you get your answer? I don't know,
No,
I didn't hear it. Okay.
No.
Okay. We would be posting the agenda to the website 3 days in advance? Is that what we're thinking? Is that what is been happening?
As far as I know, that's what's been happening.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that. I don't have Kim here.
It's posted on the agenda when it goes out, or on the website.
On the
I mean,
website.
when
Okay.
it goes out.
Okay.
It's simultaneously, or whenever
Okay.
we send it to Patrick, and Patrick gets it on there. So it's the same. It's the whole same discussion. There's no difference on the website
Okay.
versus
Got it.
getting the agenda out.
Thank you.
I asked because it says on here on the bulletin board. That's why I asked for some clarification on that.
So that's what the law requires. The law requires that there be one posting place, and so
That's a good point, though. We could add
You
the
could.
website and, yep.
Does this policy say that? Does it say posting on our website? If it does not,
It does not.
it needs to be added.
Yeah,
It needs
that's
to be
what-
added.
We can add that.
Having the minimum, I'm sorry, it's 2018. To say that the outdated open meetings law in the state of Iowa, where you post something on a bulletin board outside the office in one place, is ridiculous. Okay, most school districts in this state post it on their website on a regular basis, in addition to all of their committee meetings. So I'd like to see us follow that.
Then going back to what Director Perez had asked, on policy 208.2, that's where it's talking about board committees. I would suggest that whatever we resolve in 210.5 as far as meeting notices, we actually put language in 208.2 in that first paragraph saying that it should be consistent with 210.5. I mean, we should have all meetings have the same logic and the way they get posted.
I like that idea.
Yeah, makes sense.
I actually did have a question about the board committees 208.2. When we first created the equity committee last year, we did something different, and I was just curious what we thought of that new structure. The way it's set up, I'm a little concerned that the onerous goes on board members, since it's saying board member will chair the committee with the district equity coordinator. It doesn't match with the rest of our committees, how the rest of our committees are lined up, and if I wonder if that takes some of those responsibilities off of administration's plate where I feel they rightfully should be and moves them to the board level. So I was just curious about people's reflection of that structure, who's serve on that, but then also other board members of, is that what we really want?
Very glad you brought that up. I strongly urge that we change all of our committees, and I've talked to some of you about that in the past. These are board committees. These aren't administrative committees. We've hired a superintendent, and we have great leaders in our district that can form any committees they want for any purpose that they want. But these are board committees. And in most, not all, but in most school districts, when school boards form a committee structure, instead of having board meetings and committees of the whole and handling all issues, I'm glad that we have separate committees to focus on specific things. But in those cases, most school districts have the members of the board chair those committees. And I think we should move to that model. I think it's more appropriate. And because again, they're board committees, they're not administrative committees. And I'd like to move towards that. We can deal with that separately as we move forward with approving these policies, but I'd like to set this whole section off to the side and have a discussion about that in detail later on, this fall or into winter even.
When you say set this section, you're just speaking to this policy section, correct?
Correct.
Not the whole entire 200
Right. No,
series.
just the
Okay.
board committees.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Just the board committees section, which
So it's 208.2.
208.2.
What you're saying is pull that out
Exactly.
of this, pull it out, assuming we would move the rest to an
Exactly.
action item for our next meeting, but
Correct.
pulling that one out for further discussion.
I agree.
Leave 208.1 where it talks about ad hoc.
Correct.
Okay.
Just for, so for Director Dierdorf, that was actually a discussion in the policy committee. We did talk about the fact that the equity committee is structured differently than the other committees. As the co-chair of that committee now, and the person who really pushed for the structure, I can just tell you for me, it works better than, frankly, from my perspective, the policy committee had in the past. And what I mean by that is that I agree with Director Rosser that these are board committees. And part of the frustration, I think, in the past, and some of the reasons things weren't getting done, is because we had, in many ways, abdicated our responsibilities to the superintendent. And we were waiting for the superintendent to call a meeting about business that was our responsibility. And so having the structure removes that. The buck stops, at least with this committee, with me as the co-chair. I can't blame somebody else for stuff not getting done. I am accountable, as are the other directors on the committee. So I actually think it helps us hold ourselves accountable, and it helps the community hold ourselves accountable. And in terms of being burdensome, it's not. So, you know, I would agree with Director Rosser that I think all of the other committees should at least consider moving to this structure, whatever way it makes sense for them. And I think one of the things that we should be mindful of is there are statutory obligations. So by taking on the responsibilities, I'm responsible for making sure the agenda gets posted on time. If it's not, I'm the one who's in trouble, right? I can't blame somebody else's administrative person, right? It's my responsibility. So, and I think we did say in the policy committee, this was probably something we should discuss as a board, perhaps during a work session, and so I would be in favor of pulling it out and doing that when we have more time.
So I go back and forth. At some point, I would like all the committees be on a even ground. However, and this is my personal, I struggle with hierarchy. That's just part of who I am, and I've always, that's just what I do. I feel like the co-chair, it creates a hierarchy among the board members within that committee. And I feel like it creates, the co-chair, that person has hierarchy over the other members. So that's just one thought.
So it sounds like to me we should pull 208.2 out. We will have a work session discussion. Director Deardorff, you look like you were about to say something.
Well, I'm just kind of curious. I mean, I have a couple comments I'd like to voice, but then also I was curious what Superintendent Reisner thinks.
Yeah, I appreciate the board taking the responsibility and accountability for that. I struggle with, maybe it's more not knowing or not being a part, and it could just be because I'm new and I'm just getting the structure down. But for example, the equity committee, I think it's really important for me currently in this, in learning the district demographics and making some decisions that I'm definitely a part of those discussions. So I think it's important, and so that piece of it and knowing when they're happening, but I think that might be taken care of through policy, through revision of the policy, because I want to know when they're happening to have a voice in that. And I go back and forth in terms of, for example, the facility committee that I chair. We just had discussions, Jerry and I, that came out of a meeting about, here are some items that definitely need to go to the facility committee. And so if the board is making that agenda for that, I'm not sure how they're involved in those day-to-day discussions that are happening because it's not their full-time job.
Yeah, it's a very good point. In whether it's city governments or school boards or county governments, this structure is used commonly. And typically, for example, here in the city of Ames, you have a committee chair, whether they're a board member or others, that has a city staff member that's quote unquote staffs that particular committee. So they're responsible for working together to form those agendas. So they bring the issues that are administratively, like you just referred to, with facilities that you guys deal with day to day, and then they sit down with the board member, council member, superintendent, supervisor, and they work out and develop that agenda. The agenda isn't developed solely by the chair of board members. It's done in conjunction with.
Is that, okay, I didn't realize that's how the equity committee was operating. I didn't know the agenda was done in conjunction with the staff.
It hasn't been. So part of the issue, sorry if that's super loud. Part of the issue for the equity committee is that there had not been any interest from the administration in doing the work. And so we were just going to do it. So, and the other thing is that part of the way we navigated the request to have the administration, the way we could get the administration to be a part of it was there. You'll notice on the list of people we identified roles, one of the roles is the superintendent's designee. And so I thought, we weren't, so I didn't understand that you didn't understand, so that's what I thought Amy Lane was.
I'm new.
I thought she was the you.
I'm new, I'm sorry.
So we would love to have you, and I will send you every agenda, right? But I guess
I will be there.
The way we had been operating in the past, Amy would have been your designee.
Okay.
So that's the role she's serving on the committee. We're in roles.
Gotcha.
Right, so.
And
the equity, I would say one more thing, the equity committee, I think part of what I've always understood about it is all the committees do such different things that this structure is probably not best for every committee. And that's why every committee, I don't serve on every committee. I'm not on the facilities committee. So this might not work for the facilities committee, but I think it works for the equity committee. So I think that was a discussion that we need to have just about what worked for the work that needed to be done.
Got it.
And a little historic context, because I drafted the original proposal to form that equity committee. And originally when we drafted it, the staff person that would work with the committee chair or co-chairs, I believe we originally had the, who was it? Do you remember? Because we voted, we helped write it together.
Wasn't it?
I don't know, it wasn't Mandy.
For the initial with the equity
It might have
committee?
been Anthony, I think, at first. So school, and then, through some discussions, then it got passed on to HR, remember, Lisa, right? And then it morphed into the superintendent's appointee.
Right, and those were administrative issues. The issues had always been coming from that side. So-
Right.
And it's just something we can work out.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I have
so-
no concern that we can work it out.
is
We
the-
got it.
I think the idea here then would be
We'll
that
pull
we
off-
pull this
yeah.
one and we go for a work session with it, because I actually agree with what Director Binkin is saying of looking at some of the other committees. I think there are some committees that really, like the insurance committee, that's tied specifically to the staff having a specific request. But we should have a discussion about this another time and pull this one for now.
Yep.
I would make a request, Superintendent Reisner, if you could identify, maybe there will be an opportunity at our IASB convention to understand, while this is not, IASB does not have this policy, I would be interested in knowing other districts that do have board committees, what some of those policies may
Sure,
look
I
like.
can reach out
So,
to some of the superintendents
Yeah,
too.
so possibly some of the superintendents, and we may even be able to reach out to IASB to identify other resources there. So, thank you. Anything else on the section 200 that we're looking at?
We need to definitely talk about policy 213, because there are two different policies in there, and we wanted to have a discussion at the board table about which policy people may prefer. If we want to jump to that one, where this policy comes from, it's about how the public would participate in meetings, board meetings. Yeah, so 213. We've included the IASB policy as the first one. The second part of it is our current board policy. Part of the discussion here was, I personally think that our existing board policy is a little bit friendlier to consume for the public and understand what their opportunities are, how they can come forward. It basically makes it a little bit more clear. But at the same time, there could be an argument for the IASB policy, which, you know, having a lack of specificity could also be desirable. I don't know does anybody have comments on these two options?
Just conceptually, this has always been a very hard topic for the board to deal with, in the sense that we want to have engagement with the public, but this is a school board meeting in the public. And so I've struggled with the notion of having a back and forth, because I don't think this is the right forum. So having language that more talks about getting our work done at this meeting, I think is better conducive to better management of the district. But we need to have a mechanism for outreach and for engagement, because presentations, I don't think, are very good in having dialogue. So historically, we've tried to reach out in other ways, but there has been pushback, definitely from people within the community, that it's insufficient. So to answer your question, Alan, I don't have a good idea of how to fix it. I think it's just the reality of where we are.
I wonder if this is another one that we pull, and maybe we're having a
That's what I'm
work
wondering.
discussion for that other one. We can add this one to it.
I would second that.
All right, so we will pull 213 as well as 208.2. Any other discussions any things you want to highlight for us, the three of you?
And just to clarify, so the 3 days, were we making that change to 3 business days, or were we leaving it at 3 days?
I would support 3 business days.
I would as well, because an amended agenda can be posted the next day if we have any changes that need to be made.
I would too.
Okay. We'll go ahead and change that to 3 business days. And the other one,
So Monday doesn't count, so it'd be coming out on Wednesday.
I think Monday does count.
No, it does count. I would count that.
Because that's
So
3
Monday
days
is-
prior.
I
would
know,
have said
that's-
that.
that's
To me,
what I
that
was-
language insists it's Wednesday.
mine too. That's what I would think too, but I like the Thursday better.
So maybe we should clarify the language to make it specific, that we know that Thursday is what we're really talking about. So it's not 24 times 3, it's,
Yeah, the only issue is we don't meet on Monday. So how do you deal with that reality? I mean, I like the idea of using business days, but if we are truly shooting for Thursday, let's say 2 business days prior, because to me, prior insists it's not Monday, it's prior.
Could we say 3 business days, including the day, including the
I
day
think
of the
it's
board
too
meeting?
complicated. We could say.
Wednesday's going to be too early.
No, I'm not suggesting Wednesday. I'm saying let's do Thursday and describe it specifically in days. So that would be, if we want to use prior, okay, that would mean Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's 4 days. Right?
Sure.
Does that work?
Yeah, no, that works for me. I just want to clarify,
Yeah.
because I read that different.
Yeah, no, that's great.
4
Change it
days.
to
4
Right.
days prior
And
to the
4
day of the
days and
meeting.
leave out business?
And
Yeah, leave out business.
Okay.
Does that work?
That's less
It
confusing.
has the same effect.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
So 4 days prior then, so if there is a work session on say a Wednesday, that must be posted, or a committee meeting, that must be posted then the Friday before.
Correct.
How do you feel about that, Superintendent Reisner?
I think that's okay. I'm
You're all
trying to
right.
think
Okay.
this
I
through and
know.
play it through different scenarios, and I think we would have that ready anyway.
And again, we could always post an amended agenda. Okay, nothing's in stone, especially with the flexibility that we have with the outdated open meetings law requirement of only 24 hours. So that gives us that flexibility.
So, should we also then clarify the language to make it clear that it could be updated past there, just to be clear to the public on it? Because that isn't really clear in the current language.
I don't think so. I mean, it's the law.
It's the law.
Okay.
It's the law.
Yeah.
It's, I mean,
So
if
we would say
make
4 days prior,
Before it is scheduled.
before it is scheduled, but at minimum 24 hours notice needs to be given. That then meets the law for, we're not going to make changes 24 hours out, or less
But
than
we
24
can.
hours out.
So for example, all of these are policies of the board. If you want to make specific note of that, we could do that in the administrative rules so that the administration knows that, those are the murky weeds details of what we mean by that, and they can spell that out, or the superintendent and her staff can spell those details out in that particular thing, in those rules as it pertains to this policy.
Any other comments? Very good discussion. Thank you for all the work, because I know a lot of work went into that, and appreciate.
What about the student representative?
Sorry.
That's a new policy.
Oh, okay.
And
It's
so,
going to share at the next.
what's that?
Well, it says here you're going to share at the next policy committee meeting, so I guess
Okay.
I made an assumption
Okay.
that was being polled, but we probably should be official in that, sorry. I'm sorry, I'm reading that. So 202.5, the student school board representative. So I would go ahead and indicate if we could go ahead and pull that, because you're going to take that to the next, what I read here, you're going to take it to the next policy committee meeting.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for catching that.
Moving it to the next policy committee.
Any other comments on section 200? I think I see one.
I
No?
do. I want
Okay.
to thank Superintendent Reisner for guiding us through this process. This was a lot of policies, and I appreciate the work. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge your staff, Kim and Chris in particular, who did the work of piecing together the roadmap. Like, I know that was extra
Yeah.
work that we've never asked you guys, as far as I know, to do before, and I just wanted to acknowledge your work and thank you for it. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that, thank you.
This is real heavy lifting right now that is
Yes.
really going to pay off in the long run. So appreciate everyone's efforts on it. So I will go ahead and open it up to public, any comments from the public on our policies for discussion, section 200.
Hi, I'm Amy Edwards, 1204 Arizona Ave, and this is probably something you guys have already thought through, especially the two for policy committee, but looking at 208.2 as you're pulling that and going back for revisions, I just was trying to be mindful of the language that is still typed in there. Obviously, we don't have an associate superintendent. I'm sure you all know that, but as I'm reading through this going, I think we need to. So just being mindful, I guess, of that we're listing those that truly need to be on those committees and we're not having that oversight on stuff. So that's my only comment.
Thank you, I noticed that as well.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we will go ahead and go to the next item, which is board committee assignments. I don't have it to display. I did distribute that to all of you. The adjustment, the one adjustment we made, the Budget and Audit Committee, Director Deerdorf has agreed to serve on that with Director Rosser, and we're desiring, we believe the budget and audit process is going to be pretty thorough this year in Superintendent Reisner's first year and looking at some things coming down the road, and we appreciate his willingness to help us in that capacity. So I'll entertain any questions. Otherwise, those are our assignments, and we will move forward. Any comments from the public? Thank you to whomever put it up on the screen. Seeing none, we will go ahead and go on to number 5, board committee updates. I know our policy committee met, but I think we just received your update unless there's something else that you would like to provide. I believe also teaching and learning met. Is there an update from teaching and learning?
Yes, we met October 3rd, and it was a very productive meeting. We covered quite a bit. Some of the highlights are, we talked about, there's conversations around at the high school about reinstating the English electives for Ames High. Mrs. Lane, she shared a letter that was written by a student advocating. It was an editorial piece. It was a 3-piece, and it's on the agenda, and it's a great piece. It was written by a student advocating in favor of the electives. Another thing we talked about, it was training for Wilson Foundation. It's there's going to be one coach in each school. The instructional coach will be certified in Foundation Wilson Foundation. So that was well received. That's something that we need. What else we talked with? We talked about talking about public input. We talked about what kind of, because we have community members that come to the meetings, and we talked about how can we get their voice at the table and stay on course with what the agenda and time. So we talked about that, and I will be interested to see too what other committees do. So that would be really nice to receive that feedback. And the other thing that we talked about is equity training is being paused while we bring others up to speed right now. So that's what we got.
Could you elaborate on that last part, what that means?
Would you like to tell us? Yeah.
You might have a mic there, maybe not. Nope.
Nope.
Is it the cultural competency? Is that what you're? I'll ask Kate, won't you?
There are people watching on TV who can't see you there. Would you mind coming up here? Okay, thanks.
It's good, I never forget that.
Many people are watching us.
So one of the things that we did this summer, I think prior to even me being on the job, is we had a conversation with leaders over the summer to assess where we were at and our comfortability rolling this out to the entire district. Also in conjunction with the two consultants that were hired last year, Katie Swalwell and Daniel Spikes, both agreed that at this time we were not in a position to roll this to the entire ACSD community because we did not have an established vision going into year one with outcomes that had been mutually discussed between the administration, consultants, and teachers. So this year we're really working on laying that out so it is a successful, productive year, rolling it out to all staff, and we have capacity in the system. So that's where we are. And right now we're really expanding capacity within the buildings, as well as making sure our district leaders are prepared. This is really important work. And you cannot just roll it out with no vision. It's too much importance for our students and for our families to do this without a vision. So we're really using this year as year one of establishing outcomes for a 3-year rollout in conjunction with Daniel and Katie. And they were both in agreement with the work that they did in the year prior that we did not have the capacity to roll this out at this time. So we're working really hard this year to make sure we do have those things in place.
So when you say 3 years, will this year be one of those years?
Oh, yeah,
or are we
absolutely.
talking about 4 years?
No, absolutely. This is kind of year one, is establishing the strong foundation for your leaders to be prepared, as well as expanding capacity in your schools so you have more people to facilitate those conversations. So
So I have
this
to
would
be
be year one. Yeah.
Okay, I have to be honest.
Considering last year, ground zero.
Okay, I have to be honest. I think there were many staff members and teachers really ready to go with this and get rolling, and I thought we had a pretty good start last year. So I understand your professional input on this, and but I'm hoping we can get started a little earlier than waiting till next September. If we can get some things started this spring, I would really encourage that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Yep.
Oh, so I have a question. So part of, because I know you're on the equity committee, and so will you, when we meet in that space, bring those issues to the equity committee so that we can actually work as a district to help you all get in a place that's ready? Like,
Right,
are you
absolutely.
bringing those hats to both of those committees?
Yeah, and we also have monthly conversations with Daniel and Katie, so we're making sure we are very consistent with how we're going to roll out this work.
Excellent, thank you.
And also inviting some teacher voice, which I don't know if that has been present in the past.
It hasn't been, missed it, yeah.
I think just to summarize it and just like the nitty-gritty plain language of it, within the buildings, the building principals have identified groups of teacher leaders really, and so they have that group of leaders within their building that are getting trained by Katie and Daniel throughout this year. So once a month, Katie and Daniel are training them, as well as working with the principals and district office leaders. So that training is still going on. I think what it's doing is really increasing the capacity so that when the principals roll it out, they have a team that helps them roll it out. I don't know if that helped at all in the...
Yeah,
Does.
that's helpful.
Thank you for taking a step back and coming up with a vision and goals and a timeline. I think it'll be a lot more organized this way and maybe get better results.
I appreciate you presenting the information, and I can see even from the different committee members, this is a topic that transcends two of our committees, and that's how important it is. So I appreciate you bringing the information to us, and we may be able to try to identify ways that we can continue to keep that information in front of both of the committees, but then also included with the board. So. And I know Jenny has worked with Daniel and Katie. They will be presenting in January in partnership with us. Awesome. So you have the vision going forward, right. What has been done, what we're doing currently, and then our vision forward. So you'll have that, I think, in January at the board meeting. Okay, great. Thank you. We'll look forward to that. Great. Thanks for coming up, Amy, to explain that. Any other updates from TLC?
No, that was it.
That was it. Any other committee updates that I'm missing at this point?
I can update you on the Equity Committee. We've been doing
Oh,
a lot.
I'm sorry.
We've been
Thank
doing so
you.
much.
Sorry.
So we've been meeting about once a month. I don't remember when the last time was we did an update, but we've been meeting steadily once a month, and the work is moving. Our goal has been to prepare a report to submit to the board and the superintendent, really just understanding, being clear about what a strategy to address some of the issues, particularly related to the disparities that are in our schools could be, and helping our district kind of move to a place that makes sure we're providing equitable educational opportunities for all of our students. And Superintendent Reisner has stated that she would prefer to get our report by December the 10th. So we're about to kick into hyperdrive. The people are giggling because they're on the committee. We're about to kick into hyperdrive and really start producing something, and hope to have a report to the committee by December 10th. Part of that journey is kind of taking a tour of Iowa and seeing what other districts are doing, and so we were able to video chat with Kingsley Botchway. He's got like 14 titles. I'll try to remember this one. He is the Chief Human Resources and Equity Officer at the Waterloo School District, I believe, and he was gracious enough to give us about an hour and a half of his time. And I think we presented him with like a 2-page, multi-pronged list of questions, and he really went through and helped us answer some very foundational questions about perhaps pursuing an equity office, pursuing equity work in a district, and was really helpful in partnering with us on that work. And so I'd like to thank him for that.
And there's another meeting, I think, next Monday.
There's supposed to
Right?
be.
Oh.
I'm not sure if there will be. All right. So our time might be better spent writing, but I'm going to ask the committee what they want to do. So we'll see what they say.
It'll be posted online.
Yes, exactly right. Whatever it is. So
Thank you. Any other updates from board committees? Any comments from the public on board committee updates? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move to the public forum, of which I did not have anybody sign up. So we will go ahead and go to consent items.
Move approval of consent.
Second.
It's been moved by Deardorff, seconded by Rosser.
Minutes from the meetings held September 24th, 26th, and 28th. The personnel report with the removal of Mona Bickle. That was an error on the personnel report, so that when you approve that personnel report, it would be with the removal of that name. Gifts to the district, an anonymous donation, Peter Godlewski, I hope I said that right, JCPenney's Cyber Grant, Jill and Jim Runner, Stacia Stewart, and Judy Isles. Contract service agreements, service agreement with Heartland AEA and Youth Shelter Services for educational services at Rosedale Shelter, contract with Story County to offer school-based trauma-informed yoga at the high school, annual district vehicle purchase, and open enrollment requests.
Been moved by Deardorff, seconded by Rosser. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. Passes 7-0. Moving on to our first action item, the whole grade sharing agreement with United Community Schools.
I move the board to approve the resolution of intent to negotiate a renewed one-way whole grade sharing agreement with the United Community School District for the 2019-2020 school year.
Second.
Moved by Binkin, seconded by Perez. Discussion. Superintendent Reisner, do either you or Chris want to give, just for the general public, what it is we are voting on here? It's been a little bit since we've had our meeting with the United Board.
Do you want to give the timeline?
Sure.
So we have been in a whole grade sharing, a one-way whole grade sharing agreement with United Community School District for the last 10 years that expires June 30th of 2019. There's a structure set out in statute of how to renew those agreements. And the first part of that is to pass a resolution of intent to negotiate. We have really already negotiated. They were supposed to do this resolution last week. We're doing it this week. And we're doing it for 8 years this time just because of migration of students and some things they felt more comfortable with 8 years. It is for 100% of the state cost per student, 100% of the TLC amount per student, the 100% of the TSS amount per student, and then a small concession on us giving them a credit on transportation, which when we calculated it would be about $2,000 a year. So the first step is to pass this. Then the next step will be to hold a public hearing. And we will hold that public hearing on November 12th. United only has one board meeting a month, and we're trying to do this so that they do their action first and then we do our action second. So that's why we're not doing anything at the next board meeting. And then the statute requires 30 days from the date of the public hearing till the date we take action on the whole grade sharing agreement. And unfortunately, since we only have one board meeting in December, that's 29 days. So we'll have the final action on this on January 14th. I think that's the first meeting in January. To approve the agreement. We'll have the agreement on the sales tax sharing as well at that point. So that's what we're doing tonight.
So just two questions. The only difference between this one and last time is the $2,000 net amount?
Actually, that's the net that we're giving them a credit, but since we negotiated the last agreement, the teacher leadership compensation grant came into existence, and the statute requires us to negotiate on that as well, and for that to follow the students. So even though they've had that grant for 2 to 3 years, they have not been sending us any of that money because it wasn't in existence when we negotiated. So that is in this, and that's about $18,000 to $20,000 difference that would come to us.
Okay. And then secondly, are they also doing this with Boone then at the same time?
I don't know.
Okay.
I would assume, I believe they are planning on continuing with Boone, but I don't know the timeline.
That was my impression.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? It's been moved by Bankin, seconded by Perez, and we will vote on roll call.
Colton, aye.
Perez, aye.
Binkin, aye.
Beerbaum, aye.
Franz and I.
Deardorff, aye.
Rosser, aye.
Passes 7-0. Thank you. Item 12, easements for tennis courts.
I move the board shall set a public hearing on the conveyance of the above described property for October 29th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in the boardroom located at the district offices, and that the secretary is authorized and directed to prepare, publish, and distribute the notice of hearing.
Second.
Moved by Bankin, seconded by Rosser. Chris, do you want to give just a quick?
And Jerry can
Or
help me
Jerry,
out if
either
I'm
one of you.
wrong, but with the construction of the tennis courts, there were utilities that needed to be moved. And in order to do that, we need to give an easement to the city of Ames to be able to access those. So it is for a water main, sanitary sewer, and electrical. So basically, it's just saying they have permission to come on our property and work on those. So it's just, and again, it's all a legal requirement within statute how it does. So we have to have a public hearing, and then at the board meeting, then that night we will act to convey those. We will give those to the city of Ames, and they will record them, and it should be a done deal. Are you okay? Okay.
Great. Any questions or concerns?
I do have a question.
Yes.
On the 29th of October, are we starting our board meeting at 5:30? So is 6:30 okay to do the public hearing?
I was going to report that in my superintendent's report. We had originally said that we were going to do a work session that day, but we are going to move that work session to November 12th instead. We secured Paul Gorski to come and facilitate defining equity for the district, and so we'll move that to November 12th because that's when he can be here.
So our meeting time will be 6:30. We'll correct that later on at the bottom of the agenda. How's that? Thank you.
Okay, I just had to make sure.
Thank you for catching that. Appreciate that. Okay, it's been moved by Bankin, seconded by Rosser. This is also a vote by roll call.
Colton, I.
Perez, aye.
Bankin, aye.
Beerbaum, aye.
Franz and I.
Deirdre, aye.
Rosser, aye.
Passes 7-0. Item 13, architectural services for small projects.
I move the board approve the amendment to the professional services agreement for Rosalie Mackey Harris Architects for development of emergency evaluation plans for the 5 elementary schools in Northwood Preschool Center.
I second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Beerbaum. Discussion?
Everybody's
Jerry,
looking
can you
at
come up
Jerry.
and, I was going to say,
Come
what
on
did
up
you give
and
so that
explain this.
in case anyone from the public did not read the exhibit, you can give us a quick synopsis of what we're voting on, please.
Yeah, at this point, it's a question of time. We've asked Rosalind to be able to put some time in to be able to formalize these exiting plans, and so we want to be able to get those distributed out into each of the buildings, in each room, so that you have 2 means of egress in each building. So he was able to get the time, and he'll get to it sooner than I can, so.
Great.
Okay. Now, this is an amendment to a previous agreement that we had with them regarding this similar work?
Yeah, we have him signed up as a small projects architect, so it's an amendment. We can continue to amend that for other small projects.
Refresh my memory, I don't recall discussing this on the Pebble Committee meeting, and when was the last Pebble Committee meeting that we had?
Is that in May? I've got to have one scheduled.
May of 2018.
Yes.
And today is
You're going to point
October
something
15th?
out? Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, it's been a while.
Yes.
And I don't recall even discussing this, let alone getting input from the rest of the Pebble Committee regarding that. It's minor details, but yes, I'm trying to make a point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? It's been moved by Rosser, seconded by Beerbaum. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Any items from the board?
This Friday, I'd like to let the board know, this Friday from 5:30 to 7:30 is the ESL Family Library Night. This is a partnership between the Ames School District, the Ames Public Library, and ISU's Educator Preparation Program. There's a meal served that the students gift every student with a book. So it's for the families, and I was an ESL student once, and I remember fondly sharing time with the ESL peers. Most of the time we didn't even know what we were talking about, but smiling and just hanging was important. So I wish them luck. I think it's going to be an awesome night. Go ahead.
I have 4 quick updates. I want to thank everyone who was involved in putting together the Ames Pride Fest. It was a couple of weeks ago. It was amazing. I was able to attend a session on the coming out process that featured a student from Ames High, and it brought tears to my eyes. It was amazing. It was so incredibly moving, and so I wanted to thank everyone who was involved in that, and thank our students for being able to help our community learn how to be better. So it was really amazing. Thank you so much. I also want to thank Superintendent Reisner and her team for the goals work session that we had a couple of weeks ago. It was fantastic. More of that. We're going to put you in charge of all the meetings. That was great. It was like the most productive meeting I've ever been at in my entire time on the board. It was amazing. I got so much great feedback from our community. I felt we did really good work. It was really amazing. Thank you for that. The other thing I would like to do is to thank the Sawyer PTO. They invited me to come and speak about equity and help them start a conversation about building level equity from the PTO perspective. And so I want to thank them for having me come in their space and to be willing to engage in conversation in an honest and candid way. And I hope that all the other PTOs and PTAs are doing this and really using the love and respect and level of knowledge in the community to help us all do better for our students. And finally, I want to announce, I've been meaning to announce this, I was invited to serve as the co-chair of the Equity Working Group for the Governor's STEM Advisory Council. So I'll be leading a state level group of education, business, and government official to come up with best practices related to STEM for K-12 all across the state. And so I will hopefully be calling on some of you for expertise, and then hopefully I'm looking forward to adopting all of the best practices when we're done with our work.
Congratulations, that's great.
Thank you.
I had an opportunity to meet today with several of the superintendents and board presidents from the Story County with the Story County supervisors, and it was in some ways reaffirming to reflect on some of the goals that we had established, and as you all recall, the priority on mental health, we are not alone in that, and we had quite a robust conversation of the resources that are there or that are not there, and all of the school districts reported having some of the similar challenges that we have had. So great conversation, getting to know some folks and understand where they're coming from, talking about the emphasis on SAVE for all of us, all of the school districts, and the desire for that to move forward. But good to know that we're addressing some of the similar issues that other districts are.
I just want to take a moment to thank our staff that are here, as well as those that are not, in giving your time that goes well above and beyond the workday. And I think some people have a misconception that teachers and district staff work 8 to 3 or when kids are actually at school. And I love the fact that we have dedicated staff that go well above and beyond, spend time away from their families to make this a better place. So thank you for all your time and effort and what you do for our district.
Any other comments from the board? Superintendent Reisner.
So I already talked about the board work session, defining equity, will be with Paul Gorski on November 12th. And then enrollment discussions will not follow that meeting, but then in meetings after that, we'll start having some discussions about enrollment for next year and different planning ideas. I also wanted to thank the Ames PD. They are incredible. We have truly an incredible police department, and they are so supportive and work really well with us, and I appreciate it. Agenda setting, just a reminder, agenda setting is going to be at noon on Mondays. And then an update, so the update that I do with the other 3, that'll be at 1:30. And I realize Mondays are an awful day for some of you, but for right now, until I can get to the place where my calendar has a little bit of opening, then I'll try to move it to a different day. But on those Mondays, if any of you are going to be missing and would like to participate, we can group you hangout thing in, or we can phone you in too. So whatever works until we can get my schedule to where we can make it work. And
I'm
then
sorry,
just
Superintendent Reisner, so then are you saying we're defaulting to that original schedule?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So the groupings.
The groupings, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I know I didn't say that very well, did I?
I just wasn't sure, that's all.
Yes. And then the IASB convention, Kim needs to know if you're going, and if so, pre-conference sessions. And I just encourage you to go. I always gain so much from when I go to, I haven't been, this will be my first one in Iowa, but I gained so much in the past from those conventions and the networking that you can do. So if you are able to go, it would be great. And that's all I have.
I'm going to add one more thing. I apologize, but it's something we both did. Last week we had a chance to meet with Mayor Hala and Steve Schenker, the city manager, and I just forgot to mention it, but it was a great opportunity for us to sit down and discuss what's going on in the city world, what's going on in the school district world, and what are the ways that we need to continue to keep one another up to date on things. So it was a great chance to sit down and talk with them. Anything on the board planning calendar that you'd like to highlight?
I do not think so.
Okay. I did notice that the agenda setting meetings, Kim has put that on there on the board planning calendar. If you look at it, it says when those agenda settings are and identifies the director that is a part of that agenda setting. So hopefully that will provide for us, it's at the bottom of it, hopefully that will provide for us a guide as we march through the school year. So our next meeting will be October 29th at 6:30 p.m. and there will not be a work session to follow. So if you look at the bottom of our agenda, we will scratch that second line and adjust the time, and obviously we will get this all updated on our website. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Bankin. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thank you.